Hi, I'm Ben, 2D animator and co-creator of Callipeg, and today I watch your dinosaur animation. You can see the complete compilation on this channel, and you made this animation during the Callipeg monthly animation challenge, and in September the challenge is about cats. So let's dive into your animation. The first animation is made by Polo. I will probably not be able to name the dinosaurs, so I will just not try, I guess. What I like here is the use of arcs to make some waves with the neck and tail. I think I didn't notice the right leg here, maybe because of the color. It could have been a bit brighter here, because with the green background, it becomes a bit difficult to see it, for me at least. The shapes are really simple, which is perfect for animation. You can see kind of a bean shape here, being inverted like this. Maybe that movement here could be ease out a bit, so I would maybe make one pose here and one pose there before, just to smooth a bit the animation, with only 2 more drawings to do. Then we have this animation from Antoine Bieber. I really like the simplicity of the design and the sketchiness of the lines, and it's also a really solid animation. The volume is just perfectly handled. I said that this animation is simple, but there is a lot of different parts. One way to make it easier is, like Antoine did here, to make spaces between parts, because it doesn't have to be a complete shape in and of itself. So to me, I think it's easier to animate without having a knee here. You can see the bounce of the head here. There is also a bit of a drag. The top of the skull is going up. You can see the jaw still here, even going a bit below, and then being dragged up to have that bouncy effect. And that's also a nice example to show how animation is different parts moving at different times and in relation with one another. Here you have the same thing with the arms. This part will start to go down. This part is still going up. And it's dragged at the end to make that delay. Walk cycles are always a big task because every new character will be a new challenge. So even if you're used to do walk cycles or run cycles, it's always different. Now we have this animation from Artio. I really like here the way the dinosaur will interact with the meat. I think it could be a bit more exaggerated, like the head going deeper in the movement, because here the extreme is not extreme enough maybe. And you can also have a bit more of strength on the meat, because here we have only 1-2 poses and then it breaks. And also you don't really see it while it's breaking. So you could add a bit more of a stretch, having some little parts break. So here having some parts like this, breaking, more holes, and then it's here and it could move for a bit. So we can really feel the strength, the stretch, and then the break. Also there is some issues with the volume. The leg is that volume, and then it becomes way bigger. And also here, I think you could add a line like this. So it could start here and go until there. Volume, of course, is the most difficult part of 2D animation because it can be really difficult to have a persistent volume for a character. And here it's a pretty simple character in a way because there is not too many lines. So the character design is good, but there is still a lot to handle. A large neck, a tail, the legs, the wound here, which has to move correctly in perspective. I also like the way you have kind of a camera movement because you have the meat here and then it goes there. So the camera is panning to the right. But I think the movement could be more clear if you had a bit of background, even just simple shapes that you could move in space, just to show a bit of perspective movement so that we can understand the camera. And also at the end, the dinosaur is stopping a bit too roughly. So you could add another pose there, for example. Or even 2 poses, just to slow in a bit. This animation is from Daniel Rivas, and it has a lot of dimensions, camera movement, character movement, a big action scene, and I think you really handled it well. I like how the animation is still a bit rough in the line. I think there's a bit of issues with the volume here. Here it's nice, we can understand the angle, but here it seems to be a bit different, and I think that's because the dinosaur is facing us, like 100%, and not a bit like that. With characters with a long head like that, I tend to not show them full face, like in front, I'm not sure how to say that, because it can make it a bit flat. So I would tend to still be a bit like this, and the eye watching in front, just to feel a bit more of the volume. But that's just how I do it. I really like here how we will open. You can see a little overshoot here. I think the head seems to be not the same size between here and here because the body is being smaller. We can really feel the anticipation, so nice work here. I think it could be even more extreme like this. The legs like that. That's often what I try to do with my animation, is to watch it and say, how could it be more extreme, more exaggerated, to empathize even more on the action. But it's not an easy task, and oftentimes I just don't exaggerate enough. So here as well, it's difficult for the volume, and I wonder if there would be that line. It seems really like a head sticked on the top of the neck, like two different parts. And I guess it could be like that, for example, going more organic. And then we have some flash frames here. And it works. It's really simple. It's like cutting into the screen with the kind of a chasing of the camera is really nice. You can really feel the arcs like that. Here we have the animation from Romain Verland. It's not a finished animation, but we have a layout pose and the entire rough, which is of course enough to understand the animation. It's a simple jump, but the difficulty here is that it's a jump in perspective. If you do animation, you probably know that it's difficult to make walk cycles in perspective. But here, it's really well done. Like always, it's better to have simple shapes, like an egg shape like that, cylinder for the legs, and like a triangle shape in a way for the tail. Everything follows arc. That pose is really nice because we can really feel the stretch. I think here we could have a bit of the arm, like that. It's difficult always to draw the shortcuts. I'm not sure if it's like that in English, but when the hand, for example, is hiding the rest of the arm. So it's always difficult to know where to draw the lines, to understand the volume, which is compressed in the perspective. So I think that could help. In that position, I might have made the tail like this. So it can also follow the arc and being dragged in a bit of a delay from the rest of the body. So here you could have something like this and then going up. Which you do, in a way, just tiny bit here. But I think I would have made it a bit more extreme. But I don't know if it's that flexible on the anatomy itself. And then we can see kind of an ease-in with the same drawing, just a bit of perspective deformation. And in the final animation, I would draw again that drawing, so you don't really feel that artificial way of just deforming the same drawing. I can do that sometimes in my rough animation, but in the end I try to have one different drawings for each pose. So you always feel kind of a vibration in the line. And that's the layout of the pose, where we can see that you planned to have your lights and shadows, and I would love to see the final version of this animation. And now a T-Rex animation from Edward Davis. It's a rough animation, so there is a lot of lines, but it works pretty well. I think the tail and the head going up might be a bit too synchronized. So you can see here, it goes up while it goes to the right, and it's really at the same time. So maybe it could have a bit of delay. I'm not sure which one should be first, the head going up and then the tail, or the opposite. I really like here the anticipation. We can really feel the stretch like this. And it's also nice to see the rough lines to understand the volume. So it's going backwards and then forwards, which is of course the principle of anticipation. And then it just goes straight like that. So it's almost a straight line. The volume is also really understandable. We can feel like the low poly version of it. So it's a nice example of simple shapes making a complex character. In the tie down and clean version, you will just have to pay attention to that because it's moving a lot, even if the tail is not moving anymore. So they're kind of a shaky line. And that's where the onion skin features of Callipeg will be very handy. There's also a subtle vibration here on the tongue. I didn't notice it the first time I seen your animation, but here you kind of miss the leg. And it's funny to say that we don't really see it when we watch the animation. But that could lead to a lack of stability, of course, for your dinosaur. I don't show you the animation with audio, but there is audio in some animation, like in this animation from Elliott Gibson. The first thing here is that we don't really understand the shape of the dinosaurs in the background, so I had to wait to see the eyes here to understand the different shapes. So we have one here, one there, I think one here and one here, but the line is maybe too light, so it's kind of difficult to understand where the dinosaurs are. Regarding the animation of the humans, it's always really cartoonish here, so it works well. There is a bit of issues on the volume. The proportion of the head here seems smaller than the head here. There is also a very nice smear frame here. I also like how the fire will also have kind of a smear frame with a lot of different parts dividing the flame. that it's so exaggerated. So I will just say to focus on the proportions of the character. Be sure that the head is the same size all the way. And also here, for example, we could have an ease in, ease out. So something like this, just to feel a bit more of the movement and not just bam, bam. Next animation is from Kellan with the ghost dinosaur. I really like the composition of your scene. So we have a center stage here, the point of focus. Everything is dragging the eye to that. Also here, the trees are making a frame within the frame, so we focus on that part. And there is also the contrast of color with the warm colors of the fire being in opposition to the cold colors of the rocks, the forest, and everything else. So composition is also really important to just focus the eye where it needs to be. There is just a bit of perspective issue, I guess, because the characters seem to be way too close to the fire. It even seems to be in it. So I would say feeling a bit more of the lines here of the ground could help to understand the location of your character. I really like the ease in, ease out here, so it's a really nice movement. The fire seems a bit chaotic. I think it could be nice to have like different parts going up like this. But it's of course difficult to make fire, to make a FX animation. I'm not really used to that either. For the dinosaur, I think the movement is really nice, but you have to be sure that the model is kept. Because here you can see that the jaw is moving, is really growing up, and it's not persistent with the rest of the animation. Also here, I think the head is a bit too large. So it seems really larger here than here. And you did it a little better with the back here, which is, I think, more consistent. Also here, I'm not sure it should be there, because the head is moving a bit mechanically. So you could make just the ease out here, okay? And then another image here to smooth the animation and not have that mechanical movement here. Then you have a nice anticipation, which could be even stretch a bit more, maybe with an ease in here. So feeling more of the going back and then going down. So I would say that frame 1, frame 2 would be this here. And then another one here to really go back and go forth. And also here, I think the tail is like that. And then it's like this. So it goes from a triangle to a rectangle in a way. So I would make it like this, I guess, to make it consistent. But it's a really nice animation with a great setting and composition. Now we have this animation from Anna Dupuis, which is a dinosaur changing into a bird, which is basically what happened. I think it's nice to have that back and forth movement here for the head. Just be sure to draw again your animation, because I think here you just copied and pasted a lot of different frames. So the pixels are a bit losing quality. So I would just draw it again to have the perfect line. Regarding the run cycle itself, I think it works pretty well. There are just a few lines here that you could get rid of, so we can really understand that the tail is in front. I think here it's a bit strange maybe that you have kind of a shake, because you go from that pose to that pose and back to this pose. I think it looks a bit mechanical and a bit strange, but the tail movement here is really nicely done, so we can really feel the wave movement. And for the changing here, it's really nice to see the feathers growing. I think that pose here is maybe not necessary. It could work from that to that, because here it makes it a bit strange in the volume, or maybe it could have been here. And removing one or two poses can make the movement better. That's also why the rough animation is really important, because you can define what pose you will keep and what pose you will remove. And I like the way it just dives like this in a nice arc. I tried to keep it short, but there is just so much to tell about every animation. Here it's a work from Noah Fraisse, and I like that it's a complete setting. I like that it's kind of a magical dinosaur, because it's just throwing some lightning. And the flash frame here is really nice. It's negative colors in a way. I'm not sure we can see it. It's a really too much flash for a flash frame. So I would have made it a bit longer, or made another flash frame, like the opposite colors, for example, just to have a bit more visibility on it. I like how we can see here the parts behind the head growing up, like the energy is coming here before bursting out. It could be here also, like a flow of energy going that way and growing here before going out. That's just an idea. Also, just in the background animation itself, the background is moving even when the dinosaur is not moving. So for example here, the forest is moving, like one layer of the forest but not the other part. So I'm not sure if it should move when the dinosaur isn't moving. But that's also because the dinosaur is not animated on ones and the background seems to be moving on ones. So I think when we see the animation, it works well. And also the volume of the character is really consistent. There is no big deformations, there is no difficulties in the proportions. So really nice work on that. Animation from Raffy Palon, and I really like the design of this character. Again, it's a simple shape, like this, with the pointy teeth, really simple arms and legs. And the character is just breaking apart here, making it several different parts. The head is also changing completely its shape, but we can see the transition here. And we have the energy coming from here, making the tail go like this. So we have all the secondary actions and the relation between one part and the others. It can be pretty strange that the head is becoming really big and then becoming smaller really quickly, but within that cartoonish character, it works well. And also I love how you manage the volume, because we can really feel that the head is not just a shape. It's a volume, there is torsions. I like this anticipation here, and we can see his belly being a bit more large here, because it's squashed. Here we have an image with only a leg. I think that's just something you forgot. The posing is really nice. There is a lot of energy in it. Here, maybe there is a lack of in-betweening because the difference is really huge between those two poses. And also here it's a left leg and here it's a right leg, almost at the same place. So we don't really feel the movement. I think the right leg is coming here and then the left here and then rocking for a bit to go to that pose. But everything is really nicely done. And I really like when characters are just moving around and you can feel the entire volume, the 3D shapes of them. Animation from Charleen E with her iconic cat characters. I really like the walk of the dinosaurs. Here we can feel like a line here that the nose will never cross. I think it could be going further like that. So not only up and down, but also like this. I know that works like that from some dinosaurs. I'm not sure that's the case for the T-Rex. I think the tail here is becoming a bit smaller also, but I think there it's longer than here. So you might need to bend it a little more if you want to have the same length. Also, I think that the crossing of the legs is a bit difficult at some point. We understand that that leg is in front, but in those two poses, this and this, is a bit too the same. It's kind of a swap in a way. I don't know if I'm clear, but to me it's a bit difficult to understand, so I would make the second feet a bit backwards so you can feel more of the difference. But that's always the difficult part for me also, to make the cross of the legs correctly without having that popping effect. I don't know if the small one is the same animation. It seems so. Also, I know it's a part of the cartoonish effect maybe, but it's really synced with the larger dinosaur. So it might be a bit too the same. So I would maybe delay a bit one of the walks to just have a small delay between the feet going on the ground. But it's also kind of a rhythmic animation here, so it could be part of the cartoon effect. Regarding the cats, they are following the movement, which is really nice. There might be a bit of size differences between this and this, for example. That's, once again, the most difficult part. But I really like the way you can see them going in a rotation like that, which is also difficult to make. Also, regarding the background, it's really nice to see that you made it in a pan, so we can see the background moving. But I think we could also have a bit of maybe dirt here, just to understand a bit more of the volume, once again, of the ground. Because here it seems to be a bit too flat and there is no shadows for the characters, so they kind of seem to be floating above the ground. So that could just ground them a bit more. Animation from Sinan Aslan, which is also all about volume and simple shapes. I also like the way that the camera is moving without any background here, but we can feel the movement because the other character is coming in the frame. That here is really nicely done. So simple shapes, once again. Cylinders for the legs seems to be the way to go to make it simple and effective. I really like here how the dinosaur would just go on the ground and have kind of a bouncy movement of the head. So going back and then finding balance again, even with a small arm movement. So here I would have smoothed it out also maybe a bit of an anticipation, and then a little overshoot like this. That's the moment we can know the animation is really nicely done. The turning here. So you can really feel the rotation of the shapes. I would probably have made a bit of a tail movement after the end of the head movement, just to make it a bit more lively. That's a really simple movement here, but it works. It just makes the nose bigger so we can understand the head rotation. And now the terrible part of the story. That pose here is just insane. It's really detailed in a way, and I like there is a round shape. And I think here is just two different drawings, but it works. And then snap, no in between, only a bit of an ease out here and then snap like that. So it's really terrible to see. I did not expect it when I was watching it for the first time. So I was like, here it's a simple way to make a movement, but I would have drawn it again maybe. Here also, really nice volume. It's just simple shapes, but you can feel the way they will bend and move one over the other. So yeah, it's a beautifully made, horrifying story. And the last animation is my animation, so I will not specifically review it here. So if you're interested, just tell me, ask questions about it, and I will be able to answer it in the next video. Thank you for watching this one. I hope this first animation review is nice to see, and that it's useful to help you in your animation and just to see what other people are making. The goal is to have one video like this each month to talk about your animation from the challenge of the previous month. Every animation here was made on Callipeg, your 2D animation app on iPad, Android tablets and iPhone. Callipeg is a one-time purchase, 18 euros just once on iPad or Android tablets, and Callipeg Mini on iPhone is available for 5 euros just once, no subscriptions. Thanks a lot for being here, I will see you in the next video, and now it's time for you to animate anywhere with Callipeg.